Hello, everybody. We're going to talk about the rise of Marxism and subsequently the idea of communism and socialism and its impact on the late 19th century. So, first, just a quick introduction here: industrialization and the Marxist response. So, chapter 23, the next chapter, will deal with the second industrial revolution, which will be fueled by the first industrial revolution. And as you can see, the industrialization on the content, you see a rapid expansion of industrialization, beginning first in Belgium and then spreading throughout Europe. The key idea is that the railway system or transportation systems allow the development of the urban centers and then subsequently the growth of industrialization. So, of course, you have two sides to every story. And the positive side of this is that industrialization is benefiting the society. It's capitalism, production. People have opportunities to work, people have opportunities to make it. The other side of it, though, as we've discussed before, is also the degradation or the problems that come along with the workers or the proletariat, as we have called them in the past. And so that's where Karl Marx and his idea known as Marxism, they're here on the PowerPoint, and his sidekick or friend Friedrich Engels come along. Marx is a socialist writer, and Engels is the son of a factory owner. And so there's a couple ideas here that they're going to manifest, and we're going to talk about the people behind them and what they did. So, briefly, just to finish these two up, history is a class struggle culminating in a classless society. And once the revolutions of 1848 fail, the rise of socialism and communism is something that will become eminent. Although, until the Russian Revolution, we really don't see a huge impact outside of brief socialist uprisings in Europe. Finally, to finish this slide, organizing the working class, we have the International Working Men's Association that begins to develop, and so periodically these internationals would gather to discuss the issues of the day. Our three people here are J.G. Fichte, Johann Herder, and then finally Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. So first is Fichte, Fichte. And so all three of these people tie into the idea of romanticism with nationalism and history, and then ultimately also with socialism. So, in this idea of Fichte, he, along with other German philosophers, identified the individual egos with the absolute that underlies currently existing things. That sounds like a lot. Let's simplify it. The world is truly the creation of mankind. And so, if we look at what Napoleon number one did to his society and Europe at that point, he would provide a great example of this, that mankind would impose their will on the world. The second person here is Johann Herder, Herder, Herder. And again, looking at the German society, he was not thrilled that the French culture was imposed on that society and part of that society. And so Herder went in search of a glorious German culture and past. And yes, you can begin to insinuate a little bit of where that's headed to. He rejects any kind of mechanical explanation of nature. He says human beings, he says societies are seen as developing continuously and fluid rather than just a series of laws or natural laws that hold everything together. Herder is very significant in that he will preserve and revive the German culture. And as we know from the past, cultural heritages are typically maintained through song and also through word of mouth and finally through writings. Most of you are familiar with the Grimm, Grimm, fairy tales, and those were a series of German cultural tales that embody this idea of Herder. Our third person, our third person is Hegel. And Hegel has a couple components here of significance. Number one, he says that all time periods of history have a value because each time period is a result of those prior to it, and then also as they build on that, they become the components of the next generation of culture. Second, he says all cultures are then therefore valuable because each contributes to a necessary clash of ideas and values. And we talked about this in class before, where you are the new order, so to speak. Your parents or the older generation is the existing order. So a thesis and an antithesis. And then eventually, out of growth and time, we develop a synthesis, which becomes the new thesis of society. So Hegel will talk about this and utilize these ideas. Moving along, a little more specifically, Karl Marx, again, as I talked about before, was a radical journalist and joined Engels, who was the son of a factory owner, and both of them saw the oppression that was taking place in the industrial society and age. All of this will lead to science and cultural change, and that will be our next